Laila, I have suffered greatly, and this book shows how much suffering I've gone through under the Taliban.
Hello everyone, today we're reading A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. Khaled Hosseini is an American-Afghan writer who is remarkable because he has very beautiful, lyrical way of writing. His stories are compelling. If you've read or seen the movie Kite Runner, he is one that wrote that as well, and I'll probably do a video about it soon. In his own words, he says The Kite Runner is a father-son story, very beautiful story, while A Thousand Splendid Suns is a mother-daughter story. And at first it doesn't seem like it, but when the story starts, we meet the first protagonist. I'm going to tell you about the first protagonist and the second one. There are two remarkable women whose stories drive the entire novel, although what Hosseini does in this book is to bring to the fore some of the issues surrounding the Afghan war and how those dreadful years affected women. I think he wanted us to get a glimpse into how traumatic, how agonizing it must have been for women in those horrible years. And I think to some extent, even now, women are not really free in Afghanistan. So this is the second book, like I said, and it follows the lives of two women. Miriam is the first protagonist. She, when we meet Miriam, she's 15. She's living with her mother, who is a bitter woman, in a tiny, hot farm at the edge of town. Now, the backstory about Miriam's mother is she was a housekeeper for a rich businessman called Jalil, and Jalil already had 3 wives, but somehow he had to sleep with Miriam, and Miriam becomes pregnant, and when his wives become ashamed, literally, as a Muslim man, he could marry as many wives, I think, as possible, or 4, I'm not so sure. But Jalil becomes embarrassed about the fact that he had put his housekeeper in the family way. So to appease his wives, he takes this woman who is pregnant for him, takes her to the edge of town, builds a small hut on the farm. He brings food supplies and stuff like that, and he comes to visit his daughter once a week, every Thursday. So Miriam is growing up in this place, and even though her mother is bitter because of her experience, all the stuff she suffered in life, her mother, who never got married because she has issues with epilepsy, I think, she is bitter, and she tries so hard, unconsciously, to push this bitterness down her daughter's throat. She told her that every time a woman has a problem, if you looked, if you look closer, you'd see that her problem had something to do with a man. And somehow Miriam doesn't want to believe this because she really loves her father. And every time that Jalil comes, he brings his A game. He brings her stuff, he makes her happy, tells her stories. She is enchanted with the idea of this father who always comes to visit. But her mother knows better because she's older and wiser. So the problem is when Miriam turns 15, her father wanted her to ask for anything she wanted. And Miriam said, "Why don't you take me to see the movie Pinocchio?" It was all the buzz back in the day. I think the movie was first released. And Jalil, one of his businesses was he had cinemas all across Herat, the small town, small city where they lived, and Jalil said, "Okay, why not?" But when he leaves, we know, from reading the book, like, this might not end well. So on her birthday, she's waiting for her father. She's all dressed up, waited for almost the whole day, and he never shows up. And her mother, of course, knew that the man wasn't going to show, but she's feeling pity for her. She's probably warming up to tell her, "I told you so." But Miriam I think due to youthful exuberance, she zooms off and goes to the city, goes to her father's mansion, tries to get access to the building, but she's not allowed. They ask her father, and somehow they don't let her in. Because of course, her stepmothers might not want that. So, so the truth is, she stays outside. She's beginning to understand how horrible this world is, and how, because she's been sheltered at this very small hut at the edge of town, she doesn't really understand all the stuff her mother's been telling her all these years about her father, about men, and so she literally sleeps outside the gate all through the night. And her father never shows. Her father didn't even open the gate for her. They don't let her in. So her heart is thoroughly broken by the time she leaves in the morning. And as she goes back to the coal bar, the hut where she lives with her mother, she reaches there to realize that another tragedy is waiting. Her mother, obviously, she feels so sad that Miriam is gone to look for her father, and she has nobody. So the woman takes her own life, and this is the beginning of the end for Miriam. And as soon as her mother is buried, her father, who of course is feeling guilty, she is also feeling guilty. She goes to her father's house. One of her father's wives leads her to her room. She stays there. She mourns for a few days. The next thing we know, there's an arrangement for her to get married to a man who is 30 years older than her. His name is Rashid. He is coming all the way from Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, to marry her. And this is weird, because all the other teenage girls in the household are still in school, and Miriam was thinking this was going to be her fate as well. She was going to keep going to learn from this wise imam who teaches her, but her father couldn't even say anything, and the wedding is arranged. The next thing we know, she's married off to this man, and as she's leaving, she looks at her father and she tells him she's never going to forgive him. And she leaves with Rashid, goes to Kabul, and there in Kabul, she realizes that with this man, who is a widower, who had lost his son under terrifying circumstances, is obviously just looking for a replacement for the family he lost, and he is not a good man at all. He is abusive. He doesn't treat her well. Really, he is very abusive. He wants Miriam to wear the burqa, which is, the covering where they see only your eyes, because, other men are not supposed to see his wife in public and stuff like that. Now, while Miriam is living out this tortured existence, a few houses down the street, Laila's life is taking shape. She's a little girl who's been born to this beautiful woman and this handsome man who are both educated. And Rashid looks down his nose on the man because he's educated, he's liberal, his wife is allowed to do as she pleases and things like that. And Rashid is not that kind of man. So while Rashid is lording it over Miriam, on the other side of the street, Miriam loses her pregnancy. She was pregnant and she has a miscarriage, and she just couldn't have another child. So it's the resentment Rashid feels towards her just keeps building and building. And then meanwhile, down the street, Laila is a beautiful girl who's just been born, and she's growing up, she's beautiful, and before we know, it's like the middle of this great war, and all hell is breaking loose all around. The world is changing, changes in government, changes in in systems and things like that, and things just keep changing. And while these changes are going on and these battles are raging, Laila is growing up. Miriam is settling into this life of abuse where Rashid physically abuses her and things like that. Laila has a childhood friend. His name is Tariq. They grew up together, played together. They just love each other. They're always there for each other. Tariq protects her, helps her with whatever. And we see that at the war is heating up, as the war is heating up, Fariba, that's the name of Laila's mother. She becomes a shadow of her once boisterous self because she loses her two sons in the army, and she doesn't even have time to raise this little girl who looks up to her. So her husband, Babi, who is so in love with her that he only sees her, He's only trying to cheer her up. So what it means is that Laila is left literally on her own, and the only support she has is from Tariq's family. They care about her, so they help her and stuff like that. So, but after a while, this war just gets out of control, and there's rockets, shelling on the streets. People are trying to survive. So Tariq's family decide to leave and go somewhere else, maybe Pakistan, try to find safety. And this breaks Laila's heart terribly. Now she's a teenager, just like Tariq. They're growing up, and people begin to frown on their relationship because, as a Muslim girl, she's supposed to be thinking of, something serious right now. And they're both like running around like children, but they're no longer children. They're growing, and, people are beginning to talk. But as Tariq's family is about to leave town, both of them, in the middle of saying goodbye, and crying and all of that, they both indulge in lovemaking, for that one night. And Tariq's family leaves. Tariq promises to come back for her anyway, and this is so devastating because for the first time, there's nobody who's going to be there for Laila. So Laila is living with her parents, trying her best to do what she can. And then, thankfully, a few weeks later, her father decides to leave. Her mother agrees to leave as well so that he can leave for safety. But tragedy strikes again. As Laila and her family are packing up to leave, Laila goes outside to take a box of books or something outside, and boom, there's a rocket. And it levels the house, blows up the house with her parents inside. The impact is so much outside that she also falls down. She's wounded. She loses hearing in one ear. It's devastating. And this is one of the points in the book where you just can't help but just cry. And well, in a twist of ironic fate, Rashid comes from down the street. He's an old man. He comes to save this little girl, takes the little girl home to his wife, Miriam. Remember Miriam? Now, this is how both lives become intertwined. They didn't know each other. They had met. Miriam only met Fariba once at the communal bakery, and she notices that Rashid didn't want to have her mixing up with those women, so she just a hermit on her own. So, all of a sudden, Fariba's liberal, educated daughter is living in Miriam's house, and Miriam is tending to her wounds, helping her to get well, and she does all of this, and all of a sudden, this little girl, this teenage girl, she's better now, and she's so thankful that they took care of her. But Miriam notices something. This is not just Rashid being nice, because he's way too nice. He's giving her stuff. He's trying to get the girl to be comfortable. And then it strikes Miriam. Oh my God. This is not just Rashid being nice. What I'm witnessing in front of me is this man wooing this innocent little girl. It's a courtship. And boom. Rashid, he goes to this girl, he tells her, I'd like to marry you and take care of you because, I can't just keep taking care of you just for free, which is something else that gives us another glimpse into, the way that life works in the places where women don't have a voice. It happens in Africa. It happens, of course, in so many other places. Men have got to gain something if they're going to be there for a woman. If they're going to help a woman, they're going to gain something, in return. So, and then around that time, a stranger arrives in Rashid's house with this sorry tale of how he had met Farik in the hospital while he was dying. Apparently, he was involved in an accident, like a stray rocket, also, something like that, an incident. He loses his other leg. He, as a little boy, already had an incident where he lost one of his legs because, there was a landmine just lying there, in a country where there's always war. So this little boy has an incident, he loses one of his legs. So now this stranger tells Laila that Farik loses another leg and he struggles for his life and he finally dies. But before he died, he had extracted a promise from him to go find his friend and tell her how much, you know, he loves her and he was sorry that he was never going to come back for her. So this story breaks Layla completely. She cries desperately. And then around that same time, she realizes that that one night of passion she shared with Tariq had actually resulted in a pregnancy. And of course, you know how volatile the environment is, especially towards women. How is she going to explain being pregnant without a father, without a husband, without anybody? So, of course, she succumbs to Rashid's marriage proposal and she agrees to marry him. And Miriam grows more resentful towards the girl for coming into her home, getting help from her, and then turning around to steal her husband in quotes. And, you know, so she just doesn't like her at all. Now, after a few months, of course, Layla has her baby, a beautiful, beautiful baby girl called Aziza. She knows that this girl is not Rashid's daughter. And in fact, after they got married, she had to literally find a way to make it look like, you know, she had been a virgin and all of that, you know, try to stain the sheets and stuff like that. So with the chicken blood, I think. So but she knows deep down, this daughter of mine is not this man's daughter, and I'm marrying this man just because I want to make a life my daughter, and I'm going to find a way to escape after some time. And from that moment, she starts to steal money little by little from Rashid so she can escape with her daughter when the time is right. So after a while, you know how babies are innocent. Because of her innocence, this little beautiful girl, she draws Miriam in. Miriam sees this innocent love, this person who loves her completely, and so she falls in love with the baby girl, and then of course with her mother. So they become close, and Layla tells her the truth that this girl's not Rashid's daughter. They make a plan to escape. They escape, but it doesn't work out. At the train station, because of course you know that Afghan women, and I think, you know, women from, you know, Taliban governments and stuff, they have to have a male relative going with them wherever. So you can't just go on your own. 2 women, an elderly woman, a young woman with a child. So they meet this young man at the train station, beg him to pretend to be their cousin, but it's obvious he went to the police or whoever and tells them that, I don't know these women, and I think they're trying to escape. So finally, the police returns them to Rashid. Rashid punishes the 3 of them, including the little baby, by putting them in a dark room without food or water for a few days. It was traumatizing. After that, life goes on. Rashid loses his shop. He was a shoemaker, and things get just worse. Layla has another baby, a boy. This time, the old cranky man is happy. So this little boy, Zalmai, he gets all the attention from his father. He's spoiled with gifts and things like that, until Rashid is so poor that he can't even eat. So he devises a plan to send Aziza to an orphanage, and this so she can eat food. So he takes her to the orphanage. Now this means that the only time that Miriam or Layla can see their daughter is when they have him accompany them, because, you know, they can't go around without the male relative, so it becomes a problem. So most times when he doesn't want to go, because it's a really long walk, and it's not safe out there on the streets, if he doesn't want to go, then Layla will just go off on her own, and most times she'll get beaten up in the streets by these men. Oh my God, very horrible. So finally, fast forward a few years later. One day, one afternoon, Tariq shows up. Boom! Tariq, I thought you were dead. And Tariq wasn't dead at all. Turns out, Rashid, this cunning old man, he had arranged with that man to come to his house and spin that tale about Tariq's death, just so that he'll get the little girl to marry him. See that? So it turns out that Tariq had a really rough, a few years. His parents had died. He had been in prison for something that, he had done, trying to survive. But now he's fine. He has a nice job in a place called Moray. He wants them to come, and she tells him the truth about their daughter, tells him they're going to arrange to meet her and stuff like that. Zalmai, who is Rashid's son, is throwing major tantrums upstairs, like, why is my mother with a man? You know, chip off the old block. So when Rashid returns in the evening, this little boy runs his mouth off to his father. There was a man here, and mother opened herself to him. You know, she wasn't wearing her burqa. He saw her and stuff like that, and that's a problem. Rashid, in true Rashid fashion, starts to beat Layla, and when Miriam tries to intervene, he turns on her and keeps beating her and beating her. And this is so painful, because why would you continue to beat this woman? She didn't do anything. Now, Zalmai is safe upstairs where the father took him before he started beating these women. But this is horrible. As he's beating Miriam just too much, Layla grabs a glass, smashes the glass on his head. He is he's in a major furious frenzy right now. He grabs her, he's choking her to death, like literally she's about to die. She is at 1 inch of her life right now. So Miriam has no other option. She goes away to the shed, the tool shed at the back, grabs a shovel, comes back, and boom, boom, boom. She kills Rashid. He's dead. And that's it. The abuse is over. All those years of suffering, it's over. But this is a problem. Now, Layla and her children can be free. She can go on and have a good life with Tariq and her children. But what about Miriam? You know, they could run away. Well, like Miriam asks Layla when she suggests that, what would happen if these Taliban men were to suddenly come here, see the body of a dead man and 2 women and children missing? What do you think they're going to think? We're going to be fugitives on the run. And for how long? So Miriam tells them to go. They go off with Tariq, who comes back the next day. They go on to have a good life. Miriam takes the fall. She gets executed for a crime. While she's dying, she's at so much peace because her life has turned out so much better than she thought it was going to be. She had love. She had children, even though she didn't give birth to them by herself. She had Layla and Layla's children. They adore her. She is happy. So she gives her life for this girl and her children. And Layla goes off to have a good life with Tariq, who is ever gentle, ever nice. They have a good life. She goes back to Herat to show, to pay tribute to her mother. And while she's there, she realizes that Jalil, that man who was Miriam's father, had left a box where he gave her money and a letter explaining how sorry he was. He actually came to Kabul once, and Miriam was so angry she didn't let him in. He was dying, and and he died, and he left her some money and left her stuff. Finally, in the end, Layla and her family, they are doing fairly well, and the war is raging on. I think it's a new regime now. Children can go back to school. So, of course, Layla is restless. She wants to go back to her homeland and help. So she convinces Tariq. She goes back with Tariq and the children. When we see her at the end of the novel, she's a teacher. She's helping to teach children in school, and we also see that she's expecting a child. She's pregnant, and she reminisces back to I think the nights before, where they were playing a name game, trying to pick a name for the new addition to their family, and everybody is thinking up male names, because the last line of the book, because I have to read this, because if the baby turns out to be a girl, oh my god, I can't find it. Okay, so if it turns out to be a girl, Layla has already named her. We know who she names her after. If she turns out to be a girl, of course, what it means is her name is definitely going to be Miriam. Very beautiful story. With everything I've told you so far, you have actually read the book. This is so amazing. So if you want to know more about the book, once you want more details, you can quickly head over to my blog, www.strokesonpaper.com, and you'll see a full book review. If you need any other information about the book, you just let me know. Please just subscribe, press the subscribe button, and stay tuned for more book reviews. I promise it's not going to be dull. You will enjoy every single one of them. Thank you so much for watching. Read a book today. Bye.